It's harvest time here in Ohio, and our beautiful sunset and landscapes have inspired me to create a state-themed watercolor card. I'm using 140-pound watercolor paper cut down to standard 4-inch by 6-inch sheets. I've selected a fall color palette to mimic the lovely vibrant sunsets we have, and I'll be adding black later for my silhouette landscape as well. An often overlooked technique for shaping an outline to corral your watercolor paints are state puzzle pieces. I'm using Ohio today. You can of course use whatever state you would like or choose another shape altogether. You are the artist here, so feel free to explore and experiment. I'm tracing my puzzle piece. If you aren't able to find a puzzle piece, there are numerous black lined shapes out on the internet, so just print one off to the size that you prefer, cut and trace. After I trace, I like to go back and erase my lines to make them lighter and less noticeable. It's time now to wet my tube paints. I gently dip my round brush in my water and add a few drops of water to each color. I like to pull the water into the side of each pigment glob. Notice I'm not mixing all of the paint, just one side to create a little watered down pool for a lighter paint. I enjoy making a testing strip of all of my colors to see how they will react with the paper. If I draw from the lighter pools of water, my strokes are light and transparent. If I pull from the pigment globs, my strokes are darker and opaque. As I begin, I pour a glass of clean water. For this next step, I'm going to lay down a water wash for a wet on wet technique. First, I paint clear water on my Ohio, covering all of the area inside of my Ohio shape. Next, I'm going to use my lightest color on the wet surface. So I do not want that clear water to dry. I want it to be wet. And I'm going to dab and paint my pigment into the surface so that it can organically dance around the surface to create movement and interest. And I'm just covering the same area that I covered with my clear water. Now I will use wet on dry technique, so make sure that your base color is completely dry. During this step, I plan to blend several different colors from my palette, and I'm going to use the wet paints together so that they move around and interact with each other, creating a vibrant sunset effect. I'm using, you can see in my palette, the colors from left to right, just in striated movements up my page. that is completely dry, it's time for the black silhouette of the landscape with the buildings and the trees. I tried to cut out an example as a guide. I strayed from this quite a bit, but it was helpful to get the sizing right and placement of the houses and trees and the barn and the silo. I've switched to the tiniest brush that I have to paint the outline of the structures and trees in my landscape, and I'll go back and fill in the black as needed. If you'd like a more opaque black, you may need to paint this layer on again, or maybe even for that third time. As a recap, here are the colors I chose for today's card: ivory black, crimson red, rose orange, ripe sienna, and flesh tint. Enjoy creating your own beautiful fall landscape. Happy fall!